Hi, my name's Dan Johnson, and I've spent the past 15 years working at corporate America between the Boeing Company and Amazon. During that time, I did everything I was taught. I took on extra projects, I worked over weekends, and I maxed out my 401k. And for a long time, that all seemed to be working. Then, about 2 years ago, I realized I was hitting a plateau in my career growth, and subsequently, my income growth. Funny how those things work together. So I decided it was time to meet with a financial planner and see how I was looking getting prepared for retirement. I thought I'd be walking into meetings hearing about how great a job I was doing. And while most of these planners did tell me I had done a good job saving, they also told me I was off track to meet my retirement goals. And that if I wanted to get back on track, I only had a few options. If I was determined to live the life I wanted in retirement, I would either need to work longer or need to sacrifice some of my lifestyle today in order to save more. My other option, lower my expectations. Consider moving to a lower income area, away from my friends and family that I love so dearly. After taking a few moments to recover, I quickly realized I wasn't going to accept those options. And since starting my journey, I've become dedicated on a mission to educate fellow corporate Americans about the financial options they have available to them to start investing their money in a way that aligns with their values and beliefs so that they can generate the maximum amount of income in retirement using the least amount of dollars. So let's jump into today's video. Last week, we talked about how today we're in historically low tax rates, and just 40 to 50 years ago, the rates were much higher. Today, we're going to start a series of videos where we look at reasons why those tax rates might start to creep up closer to those levels we saw back in the 70s and 80s. And the first reason we'll look at is a national debt. I know, who doesn't love talking about debt? I know we've all had it before and all had to deal with paying it off, so we know how much of a burden that can be. I'm going to take a minute to read here because I want to get this stat right. According to fiscal data, an org created by the Department of Treasury and Bureau of Fiscal Services, the U.S. debt sits at $39.3 trillion. That means in 2026 alone, $1.06 trillion of our tax dollars will go towards paying off just the interest on our debt. That's $2.9 billion per day we're paying on interest only. Kind of crazy, huh? And to give a little more context, that makes the interest on our national debt the third largest item on our budget this year. That's more than we'll spend on Medicaid, and believe it or not, it's more than we'll spend on the national defense budget. And that's while we're in a war. So what makes this such a big deal? Well, the reality is large levels of debt and low tax rates don't coexist for very long. And that's for a few reasons, but the primary one would be our government only has a few ways to pay off debt, much like we do. You either have to use the money you have today, which means spending less, or you need to generate additional income or revenue. And the government only has one way to generate more revenue, and that's through taxes. So, what about lowering our expenses? Well, I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of politicians running on a platform of reducing spend. Baby boomers make up the largest part of the population today, and generally speaking, are the largest contingent that vote. I'm not sure they're voting for someone who's going to reduce their Social Security benefits or Medicare benefits. Do you? The other option of increasing revenue. So you'll hear a lot of politicians speak about how growth in the economy will just generally generate additional taxes, right? You and I make more money. They're able to tax us at the same rates, but get more back. However, the economy hasn't been growing at the same rate it used to. And here's a nice little stat that I'm going to read one last time. A World Bank study looked at 99 countries over 30 years and found once a country's debt to GDP ratio crosses 77% and stays there, growth goes down measurably. The US crossed this mark in 2009 and debt has been growing ever since. So what that means a little bit in layman terms is as our debt has increased, the growth of our economy hasn't grown at the same rate. And if that happens over a period of time, which we've been in a period of time of over almost 20 years now, it has a more and more impact on the growth of the economy. So that leaves our government with one real option, and that would be just increasing the rates in order to pay down that debt. Now, I'm not saying it's a certainty that you'll pay higher tax rates in retirement than you do today. I'm not trying to be a psychic. I'm not sure I believe in them. However, I would ask, as a fellow corporate American who also at one point in time had built his entire retirement plan around a 401k, how confident are you that you won't be paying higher tax rates? And how confident are you that your plan is set up in a way that you could offset some of that risk? To give you a better idea, let's look back at the family we looked at last week, making $100,000. If we went back to the 1975 tax rates, that family would be paying more than $25,000 a year in taxes. Is your retirement plan set up to be able to offset that risk? Have you thought about what your retirement would look like if you had $25,000 less in income than you had planned for each year? I know I sure hadn't before I started this journey. If you're concerned at all or curious how your portfolio is set around these risks, please comment below, and I'll reach out to schedule a free consultation where we'll stress test your portfolio against a range of different tax rates to see how it would perform. And if it makes sense, we can take a look at some different solutions that we could utilize for your unique situation. And if you got any value out of this at all, please subscribe and make sure you're made aware of the next video where we'll talk about another reason why the tax rates could be higher when you're looking to retire versus what you're paying today.